Alright, you're welcome to this video. Now in this video we are going to look at a simple project, and this project we shall build it in Python, PySide 6, C++, JavaScript and VBA. Now JavaScript we shall go ahead to integrate CSS and HTML. In VBA we shall integrate Microsoft Excel. I'm still your instructor, Emmanuel Ogdudu, for this course. Now we have the task which we are going to work on. The task is simple, where a trader deals with a sale of 3 items, and they have given us the cost price, the selling price, and the quantity that trader sells. So they want us to create a program which will calculate the trader's profit and the percentage profit. Now, as simple as it is, we are going to transform it into a mega project. Now, by the end of this session, we shall be guided by the following learning outcomes. Should be able to explain fundamental business concepts such as the cost price, selling price, profit, and the percentage profit. Should also be able to apply mathematical formulas to compute the profit and the percentage profit, and other calculations we shall see. Should also be able to design appropriate data structures to represent real-world entities. Should also be able to implement solutions using multiple programming languages and environments. Should also be able to analyze program output to make informed decisions. One of the outputs we shall create will be a CSV file. Should also be able to evaluate program robustness through validation and error handling. Should also be able to create extensible and reusable software. Now, in the previous case, we have seen 3 products. Can you extend this product to handle more than only 3? Can you extend this application to handle more than 3 products? Now, we have keynotes to take here. Like I said, we shall use Python, JavaScript, VBA to accomplish this task. Alongside, we shall build a graphical user interface application. So, I'm very confident that if you build this in C++, it will not be hard for you to do the same in C language. And the same thing, if you can do it in JavaScript, actually there's some relation in the syntax with C# and Java. So actually you can also build this using Visual Basic, because if we learn how to use Visual Basic for applications, which comes in Microsoft Excel, I'm pretty sure you can build this in Visual Basic. Now you can run to AI to give you the solutions, but in this course I'm going to give a detailed explanation. Before we start a concept, I will entirely explain the concept before we apply it. Now, what are some of the requirements for you to kickstart this course? You should have at least Visual Studio Code installed on your PC, whether it is Windows, Linux or Mac. So you should also have Python. Alternatively, we shall see how to use Google Colab. So you should also have, for a graphical user interface application, you should have PySide 6 installed. So you should also have Dev C++. In case you don't have Visual Studio Code, Dev C++ helps us to run C++ and C programming languages. You should also have Microsoft Excel installed, at least version 2010 and above. You should also have a text editor. So we have a variety: Notepad, Sublime Text, and many others, but I will recommend Visual Studio Code because it is a rich text editor. Like I had mentioned earlier, the JavaScript will go ahead, we shall involve HTML and CSS for styling. So when we proceed with the requirements, you also need a Windows PC, actually a Windows 10 PC or 11. And then you should also, in case you're using Ubuntu, it is okay. In case you're using Mac, it is okay. So you only need to have all the software installed. So the last section, we shall see how to use AI to solve that very problem. So a keynote is there's no experience required. Now about me, I'm a teacher by profession, and on the screen there is a variety of skills which I'm capable of to do, from basic networking, basic cybersecurity, programming languages, C++, C, JavaScript, Python, basics in data science, machine learning, office applications, scripting, HTML, CSS, structured query language, mention it. So in case you are in need of a serious, competent, and skill-driven, don't hesitate to hook up on me. My contacts were there on the screen. Now, my teaching philosophy. My approach is around Bloom's taxonomy, whereby I embark on project-based approach to learning. Now, this helps learners to gain real-world application and create build real-world knowledge on how things run in the real world. Now, I design learning activities that progressively develop cognitive skills, starting with foundational knowledge, advancing through analysis and evaluation. So, in the courses, in the projects we are going to develop, if it is C++, we start by explaining the concepts, then go ahead to apply the concepts, and then we finally apply the solutions we have got across multiple programming languages. Now, my instructional strategy still. Each topic is introduced through a real-life problem. To establish relevancy and motivation, learners first demonstrate understanding of the core concepts such as the profit. So, I first explain the profit, what about the cost price, what about the percentage profit, etc. before we go ahead to apply it. So, as we conclude this, I also make sure there's engagement through questions and answers. So to accommodate diverse learning styles, the same problem is implemented across console-based applications, then graphical user interface applications. Like I said, we shall use PySide 6. So frequent pauses of reflection on questions and different scenarios will be done throughout this course. Then lastly, industry and academic relevancy. So this project emphasizes transferable computational thinking skills. So by the end, we shall be able to think like developers in the field. So the inclusion of validation, error handling, and user interaction mirrors real-world professional practice. So that is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to make sure our application is able to handle errors and everything which will show up. So in every software development process, there are stages which are followed, or phases. Now the first phase is the requirements gathering. Now under this phase, we document what the system should do. An example, to calculate the profit. So we start building on from there, and the percentage profit, to start planning. So in the planning stage, we define the scope, the timeline, we define the resources, and the risks involved. So we define the resources like, I will use Python, I will use Visual Studio Code, I will need maybe to hire somebody to support, I maybe need to buy the design. So that's where I will plan. I will plan on how long I will take on the project, that's the timeline. So I will also plan the design. Here, you can simply create system architecture, data models, and UI interface. So the interface is what you interact with, what the users interact with. So you can simply design this interface on paper before you go ahead to implement it in the code. Development, write and integrate the actual code. Now this code you can simply also write it on paper before you implement it. So we go to the testing stage. After you've written everything, like we shall see, always test to verify the functionality, whether it really meets the user requirements, because at first you gather the user requirements. Then deployment, release the software to users or production. So in case you created an executable file or a website, release it for use. Maintenance, update, optimize, and support the system. So after developing a system or a website, follow up and always do maintenance. So that is how you keep yourself engaged and employed. So this brings us to the end. So by the end, you should be able to think like a software developer. Software development follows a clear life cycle from understanding the problem to maintaining the solution. So the problem is capture the profit and many other problems you will encounter in the field. So you must identify the problem, understand it, and you have to keep the solution on track. So if you're excited to learn with me, so get ready and let's get started. Alright, let us start this section. Now before we start, there are key questions which you may be interested in knowing. I'm still your instructor, Emmanuel Gidudu, for now. Now, there are several things you may be asking yourself. These are some of the key questions you should ask yourself before we start. Provoke your minds before we start. Now, in the phases of software development, we have the requirements gathering stage, the planning, development, design, development, testing, deployment, and maintenance. So the questions are, do you have all the information required before we start this project? So that is an example, the cost price, the selling price. What do you expect to change? Because you can't develop this project expecting it to work for 100 years. You must prospect any changes, so note down the changes. Perhaps move down to the client and ask questions. Then document the findings about the project. Now if it is this trader in town, I'll go down to the trader in town and I say, what else do you need? What else do you think this business will change? After 2 years, what do you expect? So in my maintenance stage, after I've deployed and given it to the client, I'll go back down and start working on basing on what I collected from the trader. So plan the duration you'll take on the project. So resources you'll need, e.g. the software, etc. So create your design on paper. An example is the interface. So this interface, write it on paper. How do you want it to look? So if it is displaying maybe should I say window components, how do you want them to appear? You can write them on paper, draw them on paper, and then you can implement it. So create your design, draw it on paper. If it is a database, write down the structure, how the tables will look like, then the relationships, etc. So another key thing to look out here for, write and implement the code finally. So here, before you write the code, feel free to write it down on paper. So before you go on PC to write, test the application to ensure functionality meets user requirements. So test the application during development, then after development, perhaps get somebody to help you test the application. Then later on, deliver the product to the user or the client. So do not sit back and relax after you have delivered the product to the client. Always maintain such that you can stay live in the field. So we shall proceed here. Now I know you may be asking a question in your minds, mostly if you're a student of computer science, information technology, or another ICT field. Now, what is the purpose? What's the relevancy of this course to me? Then you may also be asking yourself, I don't have a portfolio. How will I land a job? So the question here is, what if I'm a computer science student who needs to build my portfolio? So for every job advertised, they always ask for experience. Unfortunately, you can't get experience when you have not worked, and you can't work when you have no experience. So that circle is very terrible, moving around. So my answer is very simple. Now, while you're outside there, somebody may tell you, please build a tic-tac-toe. This may end you into mess. So I'm saying, build real-world applications that solve real-world problems. So remember, as a computer scientist, science is there to solve problems. So always look out for problems. So look around your environment to find gaps. Actually, look for gaps. either in existing systems or where there is no ICT integration. So look out in supermarkets, check their operations. Go to schools, check their operations from handling stock, then admissions, universities, check out colleges, then submitting results, reporting. So all those are things you can look out for. Microfinance institutions, NGOs, then individuals. Meet an individual. Perhaps an individual needs a website. So meet individuals and try to interact with them. What are they up to? So you can do an undercover investigation. If you don't want to go on ground, you can do an undercover investigation and gain insight on their operations. So, or go on ground like I mentioned. Now, for example, we are not just talking theory here. My intention is always to solve problems. I don't teach theory. So even though theory is what builds us to be what we are, but I like building on real matters. So for example, a company X uses a notebook to record their employee arrival and departure times, plus even taking their names. And unfortunately, some days the book gets lost, the notebook gets lost, or even it is spilled, water spills on it, or some other, maybe a juice. So, as a computer scientist, go sit down and create an app to help solve that. So you'll keep refining it. Always create a sketch. You'll always be refining it on the go. So a school X struggles to enroll students who are far away from school. How can you help? Go sit down, create a web application. You can even start as low as creating a Google form where students submit their names and their personal details, and then their school enrolls them, they pay, something like that. Just think about how to solve a problem. Do you notice a company with no website, or it has no brand? Please find out where to fix, find a problem to fix. So design for them a website. Now, if a client fails to take your product, don't be frustrated and say this is now the start and the end. Use those projects you have developed on your portfolio to showcase in case you're asked for experience. Now you have something to show. So you can also go ahead to visit freelancing sites like freelancer.com. You can visit Upwork, then other freelancing sites. Get projects which clients have posted for support. So find that project. Imagine you're really doing it. So sit down, do it like you're doing it for a client. So after that, put that on your portfolio. So with AI in play, think about how a company Y can get its clients effortlessly. How can it email its clients without always somebody sitting on the PC to say, I have to send messages to the clients. So create a web portal for institutions. Host the portal, manage the portal for the institution. You will be employing yourself. So volunteer for IT support or in other roles. So when you volunteer, it is not a must that you will have to volunteer, but if you realize there is no room you're getting into the industry, you can find volunteering roles. That is where you learn more in case you just feel your knowledge is not sufficient enough. So finally, go out on social media, showcase the projects you've accomplished. So that is how people recognize that so and so actually exists, and this is what he has done. So in this project, I'll try as much as possible to integrate all whatever I've mentioned. So go ahead, finish up here, then we shall meet again. Okay, to run Python code on Linux, I'm using Ubuntu. The first thing, come to your terminal and run sudo apt update such that you update your package list. Then come and also run sudo apt install python 3. Then lastly, install pip via this command. So if you go to your terminal, I'll first clear this. So first do sudo apt update to update the packages list. Okay, after the package list has been updated, come and say sudo apt install python 3. Python 3. Press enter. It will get when it is already installed. If it is installed, you can find out the version by saying Python 3 or just Python space and version. Press enter. I think it is saying not found. Did you mean Python 3? Let me add 3 here, and I press enter again to say this version of Python is installed. So you can also install pip by saying sudo apt install python 3 space pip. It will go through and it will install pip. So after it is installed, I'll clear the terminal. That is done. We shall now go ahead to install Visual Studio Code. To install Visual Studio Code, you can go to this link, or you can simply within the terminal go and say sudo apt install code. It will go and also install Visual Studio Code. Because I have it, I'll terminate that process by Ctrl C. So after you've installed Visual Studio Code, come and launch Visual Studio Code and install these 3 packages here, or extensions. They will be very helpful. Now again, I have not created on how to install Python on a Mac PC because I don't have a Mac PC right now, but immediately I get it, I will also demonstrate on how to install it on a Mac. Now in case you wanted to use this link, come and copy this link, head down to your browser and paste it here. Come and download, not the Windows, not the Mac. Come and download the one which suits your distro. Is it Debian or Ubuntu or the Red Hat, Fedora and others? So for I'm using Ubuntu, I'll download this option. So that is how you'll download and use Python on a Linux PC. But don't forget to install these 3 packages or extensions. Alright, now to use Google Colab to run Python code, first you should have a Google account. So if you have a Google account, come to the browser. I'm here on Ubuntu, I'm using Firefox. So come to your browser and search for Google Colab. So this is an online editor. Look out for the first link which says http://colab.google. Open this. So you'll see this page. Come and click New Notebook, or click from here New Notebook. So it will open this window. Now this window, I'll close this. This window has AI assistant here, that is Gemini 2.5. So while you're writing here, there's AI which will support you. It is very nice if you're working with machine learning. So the question is, where is this file saved? This file goes to Google Drive. So you can go and open your Google Drive. Let me go and open Google Drive. So if you come to Google Drive, remember this file has just been created. So when you come to Google Drive, you'll see there's a file here just created almost right now. So you can come back to your Google Colab and write here an example, print print my name. To work exactly like the way you may want to use the Visual Studio Code. So after writing the prompt, click print or display button here. Click display button and it will run. So after running, to display the result here. So you can also perform calculations like an example, x is equals to 2, then y is equals to 4, and then print x plus y. Anything you have to do, importing modules, whatever you want to do, run this. So we shall get the result as 6. You can also comment the code. Everything, it is a one in all self-contained editor. However, it works online. So whenever you create the file, go to Google Drive, you'll get your file here. So it already saved the draft. So you'll always see something like draft saved. So this is how you use Google Colab to run Python code. Alright, welcome to the calculator of profit program. We are going to start with the Python version of it, and in this version we are going to create this project fully. Now we have several learning outcomes which are going to guide us here. The first is, by the end of this module, I've called the whole of the Python section a module. So you should be able to define and manipulate variables using appropriate Python data types, accept and validate user input from the console, design and implement functions to modularize code, apply arithmetic and logical operators in programs, control program flow using if statements, while loops, and match case structures. Second last, you should be able to produce formatted output using the print function. Lastly, you should be able to develop a simple console-based application which can be further extended into a robust project. Now let us look at the project, how it was built. Now this is the project. Like I mentioned earlier, you can create this into a robust project which can become a big project for you. This project, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to calculate the profit, total cost, percentage profit, and many others. Now here first, what are we going to see? We are going to run this program, and at the end it creates a CSV file which stores the data which we have captured from this program. So I have one here. I'll first of all remove this, delete it. So I'll come and run this program, come to the play button here, click on run Python file. I'll extend the terminal somewhere here like this. So it will bring the output asking us choose and enter a number of your choice. Welcome to the profit calculator program. So I will choose one option from here. I will choose 1. So please enter the maize cost price, enter 300. Please enter the maize selling price, enter 400. Please enter the quantity sold. I'll enter 5. So it will compute the total cost, the total cost price, the total selling price, then the maize profit, and then the maize percentage profit. We even assigned, actually we shall remove this because it is percent, not USD. So it will again ask, do you want to quit? Yes or no, or Y/N. I'll click N because I don't want to quit. It will again ask, choose and enter a number of your choice. Remember, it has now created a CSV file here. Let us populate another record here. I'll choose 1. enter the cost price, I'll enter 3,400. Enter selling price, I'll enter 3,500. The quantity sold, I'll enter 50 units. So it has again computed that with all those details. So we can now terminate. It will ask again, choose a number to enter. I'll choose 4. 4 will help us to terminate. Do you want to quit? I'll press Y and it will quit. So if you open the CSV file, just click on it. It will open from somewhere here. I'll pull this terminal window and you realize you entered 3,400, 3,500, 50 units, and everything has been computed. So in case you want to do further data analysis, you can now use this CSV file to do further analysis. Now in the next lecture, we are now going to introduce the whole concept on how to start building the whole of this project. Finish up with the testing and review the video in case you need, and let us meet there in the next lecture. Alright, welcome back. Now, we had mentioned that this is the task we are going to solve, whereby a trader deals in 3 items. They provided the selling price, they provided the cost price, they even provided the quantity that person sells, and we are tasked to create a program. So when you look at this in the first sense, you may see it as something small, but we are going to build it into something very, very robust. Now I'm going to pose a couple of questions here. In your own understanding, pause the video and we focus on these, actually something like 5 questions. So what information must be collected for each program so as we can calculate the profit? And then which values are inputs? Based on this question, which values will be inputs to the program? I think you're noting down the questions. How do you explain profit in one sentence using the cost price and the selling price? Another question is, can profit ever be negative? So if it is negative, if we get a negative value as the profit, how do we justify it? How do we indicate it to the user in the program? Why is the quantity sold necessary in this calculation? So that one should be marked also. How should the program respond to negative quantities? So in case there is a negative quantity which has been fed in, I think we shall look at that ahead. How should the program respond? Now these questions are key for us to start with the first lecture. Now we have guiding instructions or outcomes here. So by the end of this section, you should be able to define and manipulate variables like we had mentioned earlier, produce formatted output using the terminal. Actually in the terminal using the print statement or using the print function, sorry. So come to Visual Studio Code. We are going to create a new project here. So come to File, then come to Open File, not even Open File. We are just going to, let us just create one here within this very directory here. Click on New File. So after that, give your file a name. I'll give my file a name, Profit Calculator. So don't forget the extension .py. So we have the project over here. Now the first things we are going to demonstrate, before we even go to apply it in the project, we are going to demonstrate how to display something in the terminal. We said we use the print function. You write the word print within the pair of parentheses or brackets, open quotes within, then type in the content you want to display. So I'll just say hello Emmanuel like that, and then to finish and see it in the terminal, you'll come and click on this play button. I'll come down, click on the drop down arrow, then click on run Python file, and you'll have the prompt here. Not even the prompt, the content I wanted to display. So that is how you can display content in the output window. Let us look at how do you work with variables. Now, variables are known to store data which is meant to change over time. Now, we can create a variable by simply giving it a meaningful name. An example, my name. I've separated it with an underscore. Okay, my name, then I'll put it in quotes like this. And the reason I put it in quotes because it is a string. And then we shall look at age. Age, my age is 28. Now age is a numerical number, so I don't need to put it in quotes. So we can print this output, this into the terminal by simply saying print. Okay, I'll not put in quotes, print, then my name. So when I try to print this, it will give me the name which I had assigned to this variable. So my name is a variable, and my age, I was supposed to make this more descriptive, and my age is also a variable. I can also print my age just like this. So I can print these two like this, and I'll get the age and the name back in the terminal. So lastly, actually not the least, we're also going to look at how do we also use variables and accept input. An example, I want to accept my name. Now, for us to accept input in Python, we do what we call using the input function. You say input like this, open a pair of parentheses, then add the prompt inside. So you'll ask a question like, what is your name, as the prompt. Remember, you're trying to get feedback from a user who is using the program. What is your name? So we shall assign this prompt to a variable. That's why we first looked at variables. I'll create this variable, I'll call it my name, and I'll assign it to this input result. So when the user enters the name, I want to print the result of my name, just like this. So before I even print, let me try to run this. It will ask what is your name. I'll enter. So the program breaks from there. It has not printed this name. So we shall come back and print and say print and say your name is, then we shall put a comma, then we pass my name. So when we try to run this, we shall get the question asking us in the terminal down here, what is your name? I'll enter my name. When I press enter, it will say your name is Emma. So it will get what I passed here and then add it to the variable. So we have cases where you want to restrict. Let us take this very example. You asked for the name, then somebody enters a number. Let us see what happens. What is your name? Somebody enters something like this, and you say your name is that. Let us restrict it such that it will give us the results we want. Let me ask for age. What is your age? I think it will give me the same. What is your age? Then I'll give this a variable, my age, just like this. So I'll print this and run. What is your age? Instead of age, let me enter the name. So it will print. It is not sensitive. So for us to make our program sensitive, we do what we call limiting the input. So in case I'm asking for the age, I know age is always an integer. So I'll use the integer outside like this, the integer data type, then open the parentheses, then I'll now have to put my prompt. What is your age? So if a user enters a number, let us see what happens. So actually, if a user enters text instead of age, the question was, what is your age? Somebody enters a name, and it will flash back an error and say value error, valid literal for int with base 10. So it expected a number rather than a text. So by so doing, you're able to restrict what the users should enter into the system. So this brings us to the end. We are going to now apply these concepts exactly in the first section of our project. First finish up here practicing this, then let us meet in the next section. Alright, welcome back. Now we had questions here to answer. Which values are inputs and which values are outputs? Then, what information must we collect for each product before we calculate the profit? So you can, if you answered them already, well and good. In case you wrote them on paper, well and good. But now let us go and apply it. So the first thing we shall ask ourselves is, we have been given the selling prices and the cost prices plus the quantity that person sold or that trader sold. So the first thing, we are going to make our program dynamic. We are not going to make it static by simply fixing values to variables, and we say something like cost price is equals to 800 or 6,000, like that. Then we say selling price. So we shall be creating a static program which only works when run at once. We are going to create something which is dynamic. It can create or it can calculate the profit for any products, actually for those products, but for different transactions or different collections that person has made. So the first thing, we are going to create a variable called cost price. Feel free to always add comments. Create a variable cost price. So I'll start with the first product. I'll start with the maize product. So I'll create the cost price. Create the cost price. So the cost price, I'm also going to ask for the user to enter the cost price. Remember, the cost price is here, as indicated here for maize. I think it must be any of these ones. So what am I going to do? I'm going to ask the user. I'm not going to fix this value here. I'm going to ask the user for it. And remember, I'm going to allow floating values. Remember, previously we used an integer. You can use a string, you can use an integer, you can use any return type. I'm going to use a float, say that if it is the cost price is a decimal, it can also be captured. So I'll use the input function and ask for the cost price. I'll ask and say, what is the maize cost price? So the user will enter the maize cost price. Let me also create another variable. Actually here, create variables, not just a variable. Create variables. I'll create another variable named selling price. I'll also ask the same question. I'll ask the question, what is the maize selling price? Okay. So on this very day, this guy also sold something, actually sold some quantity. So I'm also going to call a variable named quantity sold. I'll also, it can be 70.5 kilograms, whatever. I'll also use a float just like this. I'll ask a question and say, what is the quantity sold? So after this is when we go to the next question, which was asking, let me see, how do you explain the profit in 2 sentences or in 1 sentence? So we shall come and calculate the profit. We shall call it profit. So what is profit? Profit is the gap or the return money between what you've sold or the selling price when you have deducted the cost price. Let us say, for example, you sold something, you bought it at $200 US, you sold it at $400 US. So if you get the price you sold the item at, subtracting the price you bought the item at, you'll get the profit. So here we shall get the selling price. We shall get the selling price minus the cost price. It will give us the profit, and we shall print to the user and say, you earned a profit of, then we shall display profit. Okay, so remember, we have only gotten the quantity. We have only taken this, but we need to find out how much this person sold before we compute everything. So this is where we are going to introduce the total cost price. Cost price. So the total cost price, we are going to get this cost price times the quantity sold, so that we get the amount of money that person collected from the sales of a given quantity. An example here was 70 kilograms. So we shall get the quantity sold, shall get the cost price. Using the asterisk, we shall calculate the total cost price by multiplying it by the quantity sold. So here we shall now go and print the total cost price before even we print the profit. Actually, we shall erase this profit line, and we now come and also compute the total cost price, total selling price. Selling price is equals to, also shall get the selling price times the quantity sold. So what happens here, we are using the asterisk for operation. Let me talk about operators briefly here. Let me talk about operators, that is division, multiplication, subtraction, and addition. An example, let me say I have variables x is equals to 3 and y, just giving an example, y is equals to 5. We can print the result where we are getting y divided by x. So we use the / for division. So when you try to print this, what shall we get? We shall get 1.6 recurring. So if we want to try to print, we can also do something like x minus y. If we try to print this, so this is how you'll get -2. This is how you use these operators, and we are using them over here. So I'm going to come back, and you can also do the same. Put here addition, put here multiplication, which is an asterisk, and you see what happens. So we shall get the total profit. We shall get the profit by subtracting the total cost. By subtracting the total cost from the total selling price. I hope I've said it mathematically well. So we shall get the total selling price minus the total cost price. So we shall go and now print our profit to the user and say, you earned a profit, and the profit of, then we shall provide the profit here. So let us run this and we see what happens. Actually my terminal is congested. Let me first clear it. So you can run this and see what happens. What is your cost price? What is the maize cost price? I'll enter 300. What is the selling price? 400. Quantity sold, I sold 70 kgs. So it will first of all give the profit earned, but we also need to see the total cost price and the total selling price. So I'll come down here after the calculation and I'll say print, shall say the total cost price is cost price equals to, then we shall call the total cost price variable here. Shall also print the total selling price, shall also call the total selling price variable here. So I think it will now make sense. If we try to run this again, I'll enter 500, I'll enter 600 as the selling price. So the quantity, I'll enter 45. So I'll have the total cost price, I'll have the total selling price, and I'll have the profit. So by so doing, we shall be able to accomplish all those. Finally, we shall now compute the the percentage profit. So percentage profit, how shall we get the percentage profit? So this is the percentage of the profit earned when you get the profit you've earned out of the total cost price times 100. I hope it will make mathematical sense. So I'll call it percent profit. So these are variables. I'm assigning variables. So I'll create a variable percent profit and I will do the mathematics like I said. So we get the profit divided by / divided by total cost price, then times 100. So I'll print the result and I say your percentage profit is, so we shall say your percentage profit equals, let us try to run this again. My terminal is crowded. First of all, clear it, and I run this again. I'll enter 500, enter the selling price as 600, quantity sold, enter 23. So I'll get back the total cost price, then the total selling price, then the profit earned, and the percentage profit. So you can go ahead to format these. I want to add, actually on the total cost price, I want to add the US dollars. Just put a comma, then come in bracket and put USD. Then I'll put a USD, then space, preceding it with a space. I'll also come and do the same here, USD. Profit is the same, space USD. Then the percentage profit, this is different. We shall put the percent symbol, just like that. So when you run this again, always test the program whenever you make some changes. So the cost price, I'll make it for 500. I'll make the selling price 5,000. Quantity I sold 67 units. So I'll have this with the currency attached, just like this, and the percentage. So you can go ahead to use the mass module to round off this number. So this brings us to the end of this section. In the next section, we are now going to introduce how do we use the logical if statement to control the flow of our program. Alright, welcome back. Now, we ended at a point when we had created all this. I think you may be seeing me clearing the terminal here. So just use the command clear to clear the terminal. Okay, so it will help you to have a clear terminal here to work with. Now we are now going to use going to the, remember we are only creating for maize, so we shall also go and create for other products also. Now let us look at the use of the if function. We are going to use the if function to decide. Remember, we asked a question: what happens if the profit is a negative number? We are going to make a decision there. So let us first see the use of the if function. So the if function, or the if logical statement, helps us to make decisions. Now let us say an example: x is equals to 200. So we can say if x is less than or equal to 100, then put a colon like this, then we shall print something. Shall say the value is small. Okay, so else can print something, and we say the value is too big. So let us try to run this. So value is too big because x is 200. So in case you want to use multiple if statements, so you'll come and say elif, just like this, elif x is greater than or equals to, less than or equals to 150. We shall print a statement, and we say the value is average. Else you can create another elif statement here, as many as you wish. I'll close this by the else statement. Else print the value is too big. So what do we specify? We shall check the first condition: is x less than or equals to 100? Remember, this is the value of x. Is x less than or equals to 100? If it is true that it is less than or equals to 100, it will print this. Unfortunately, x is not less than or equals to 100. It goes to the next condition: is x less than or equals to 150? Unfortunately, x is 200. It's not less than or equals to 150. So this is when it will print the last default statement. So that is how you'd use the if statement. Let us come and apply it here to decide the profit. So we shall say if profit is less than or equals to 0, we shall print to the owner of the business. What did I do? Shall print to the owner of the business and say, you didn't make any profit today. Okay, what if it was greater than? That is now the other point of the case. So in case it is less than or equals to 100, less than or equals to 0, that is, which means it is negative. So it will display this statement. So, and it will say, actually it will come down here and we say, shall now assign profit a new value and say profit, I don't know whether we should assign, let us just leave it. Let us now print the other statement. Else, if the value, remember we said it executes this if it gets when the condition is true. If it is greater than or equals to 0, we shall say you made a good profit today. So that is how we would use the if statement to help the user to know whether they made a profit or not, by simply displaying a message to them. So remember, the value comes negative. So we shall now print a message and say, we shall add a message here if somebody made a loss, and we say this is not a profit but a loss, profit but a loss, just like this. Let us try to run this. We are going to make sure we enter some values which will cause a negative. So the question saying what is the maize cost price? I'll enter 300. What is the maize selling price? Somebody sold it at 250, not 300 and above. So he sold 45 units. So this is the total cost price. This is the total selling price. This is the total profit, and total profit is minus 2250. Then the profit, percentage profit, is also negative. So like I said, you can go ahead to round off this value such that it looks more smarter. So you did not make any profit today. This is not a profit but a loss. Actually this is I missed something here. This is not a profit but a loss. So this is how we would guide the user to know whether they made a profit or a loss. So go ahead, practice this section. Let us meet again in the next section where we are going to look at the use of functions. Alright, welcome back. In this section we are now going to be guided on how to use functions. We have left this section. Now here we had some questions to ask again. That was lecture 2. So if you were to calculate the profit, which formula did you use? So I think you've seen what I used. So if the cost price is 0, what problem occurs to the percentage profit? I think we shall look at this later in lecture 3, which I have just concluded. So how do you group maize and beans and millet data logically? I think that one we have tried to play around with it. So in lecture 4 we are going to look at why might a function be useful in this program. This is what we are going to explain. Then what should the function return? Profit, percentage profit, or both? So this is what you will also address. These are the questions you can pose in mind as we are proceeding. So by the end of this section you should be able to design and implement functions to modularize code. That's what we are going to do. So come back to your program. First of all, clear the terminal again. I'll come back to my practice file here. So we are going to create a function. I'll create this function to add numbers which are accepted as input. Now what shall I do? I will use the def keyword to define a function in Python. We use the def keyword followed by the function name, then open parentheses, put a colon and press enter. So inside here you can pass the parameters. I'll pass x and y. So here I'll try to add x and y. I'll say z or z is equals to x plus y. So I'll attempt to return z. So I'll come here and I print. Actually, I'll first of all, anyway, I'll print the function name, okay, with the supplying the two values of these two parameters. X I'll supply 2, and I'll put a comma, and y I'll supply 3. So z must be 5. Let us print and see. So z is 5. So by simply creating a function, we can do a lot without always explicitly adding these numbers. So if I want to add 3 and 4, I'll simply come and run this code and I'll get 7 without simply hard coding the values. I'll only pass them in a function and everything will be done automatically. So this is what we call calling a function. So we call the function with the values 4 and 3, and it had to return those values. Let us try another case where should I say we have more than one variable. We have another one p, and we shall pass another variable here p, just like this. So if I'm passing here values, I'll pass here a value of 4. So if you try to run this, you shall get the result as 11. You can also just change the operators here, change remove addition, put subtraction, and get the result. So this is how to use functions. Sorry, I've closed my practice file. So this is how you can use functions in Python. So we are going to create a function which will store each of these individual products. That's why we had a question which is saying, why might a function be useful in this program? We may attempt to organize our code such that it is very, very readable. So first I'll come at the top here. Let me just come at the bottom, and I create a function, maze function, like this. Open and close parentheses, press enter, put a colon and press enter. So within here, I'm going to put the whole of this code, just like this. So make sure it is indented with one tab inside, or one tab is equivalent to 4 spaces, just like this. So after creating this, we are going to create another function. We are going to create another function for beans. Remember, we have the same variables to solve. Beans has, we shall also ask from the user the cost price, the selling price, and the quantity sold. So I'll copy this as well, and also create a function here. I'll just change the name to beans. Then I'll come paste another one. I'll just change the name this to millet, just like this. So what happens here? I know you may be asking yourself, why is it that the variables are having the same names? When the variables are in different scopes or different functions, they are free to carry the same names, but you cannot use this very variable with this very name within this function. So after creating this, we shall now come down here and we create what we call the main function. Main function, like this. And then I will now ask the user. Actually, I will now prompt the user and I say, welcome to the profit calculator program, like this. So somewhere here I will want to print some decorated statements. I'll want to print the equal sign like this 10 times. I don't know whether it will work out well. Hope it works. I'll also print the equal sign this other side 10 times, just like this, times 10, just like that. We shall see how it will look like. Then I'll now ask the user to give me some input. I'll use the if function, where I'm going to prompt the user to either choose maize, beans, or millet. So we are going to create a menu. I'll use a comment and I say create a menu. So never forget to use comments because they help you to always remember what was happening. An example here, I created functions, and remember I created these functions but I didn't edit. This is maize is okay. Then beans, this is for beans. I'll just remove this and put beans, just remove this and put beans. So that was going to be a mess when the user now sees something different. So I think there was no other maize anywhere. Come here and also replace this with millet. Then come and replace this with millet as well to this. So in case you notice anywhere where it is still appearing, you can change it straight away. So we are going to display a menu. So that menu we are going to use the print just like this, and we shall say option 1 is maize, and then put the \n, then option 2 is beans, put a / like this, and then n. Option 3 is millet, just like this. Now why do we use the \n? Let us see an example here. Now let me print something where you want 1, 2, 3 on their own lines. I'll say 1 \n, 2 \n, 3 \n, 4. Let's try to print this. So when you print this, you realize each character or each number has been sent to a new line. What if we remove the \n and we leave it with just spaces like that? Try to print, so it will print us on one line. So using the \n, we'll send each number to a new line. So this is what we are doing here. Maize will be sent to a new line, beans to a new line, and millet to a new line to create a menu. So we are now going to ask for the user to enter a number from the list above. We shall ask and say, please, actually from in a prompt, we shall now create an input using the input function, asking the user to please select an item from the list above, just like this. So we said we need to assign this input to a variable. We shall assign it to an input to a variable named user choice, just like this. So we are now going to check the user choice. Check the user choice. What are we going to check for? If the user choice is 1, if user, remember we have used already the if statement, if user choice is equals to 1, now what do we do here? For comparison, we use two equal signs. Then for assignment, I think you've seen here, a case is here. We are assigning a variable user choice to the input, to the prompt from the input. So there's something we are missing here. Remember, we have to validate this. So this user choice 1, 2, 3 are integers. So we shall only accept integers. So create the integer, open and close parentheses, and then put the input within the parentheses. So when the user chooses choice 1, we shall now go and call this function here, the maize function. We shall copy this function just like this. So else if the user choice is equals to 2, what happens? We shall call the beans function here like this. So calling, you write the function name followed by the parentheses just like this. So elif user choice is equals to 3. Remember this was 2. I like leaving space so that it is readable. This is 2, this is 3. We shall call the millet variable here. Okay, something like this. Else shall display a message and you tell the user you didn't enter a valid input. You did not enter a valid input. We shall not give this user an opportunity to try again for now. We shall leave it from here. So this is how we are going to run and create this function. So after that, we are going to come and run this. We shall now see what will happen. Actually, where am I still running? I want to run this one here. I'll come and run this. So this function doesn't end anywhere. It ends in space. We can come and call the function here. Call the main function. Just here like this. So I'll call the main function like this. Then we shall go and run. So it will come and ask, please select an item from the list above. If I select maize, it will rush and go and run the maize function. I'll enter maize, which is option 1. It will ask for the cost price. I'll enter a cost price like that, some tentative figures. And then I'll have all these details, and the program terminates. So that is how you can work with creating functions to organize code in Python. In the next session, we are now going to proceed to manipulate every section such that the program doesn't terminate just like this. You can keep interacting with it until you quit at your own choice. Alright, welcome back. Now, in the previous lecture, we managed to consume this concept by calling the function somewhere here, and it had to reperform these tasks. So what happens is, it was ending on the way. This is when we are bringing in a new concept, the use of the loops. So by the end of this section or this lecture, you should be able to control the structure of a program by using the if or the loops or the match. I'm going to explain on each of these. I'm going to explain, I've already finished on the if. I'm going to explain on the while loops, and then the for loop and the match case. So the question we need to pose here is, how could this program be extended to support more products? Okay, we have captured here 3 products. So you pause the video and first reflect on this. How could we extend this program to accommodate more products? Let us start straight away. I'm going to start with the use of the for loop. The for loop. So to use the for loop, you use the for keyword space, then put the variable you want to use. Let me use I. So use the in keyword, then use the range. I'm going to check for I in a range. So open a pair of parentheses. So the first argument, I'm going to start with 1, then put a comma. So the 1 was the start, then the stop. I want it to stop on 20. When I put a comma, I have another one, the steps. But let me first see for this. So I'll come down and print the values of I. So if you try to run this, we shall have values from 1 to 19. So as it starts from 1, the range is starting from 1 to 20. 20 is not excluded in the output. So if I want 20 excluded, I'll come and extend to 21. Then I run this, 20 will be included. So there is the last argument here, which is the steps. So I want it to move by steps of 2. Let me start. So I have 2, 4, 6 up to 20. So whenever you want to create a range of values, but this time round with a step, you can come and provide the last argument here, or you can just leave it just like that. That is the use of the for loop. Let us look at the use of the while loop. So the while loop looks at a condition, and then it terminates it at a point when it thinks the condition has been met. I'll create a variable x. So I'll come and say while x is less than or equals to, I'll say 20, comma, I'll print, put a full colon, I'll print that value of x. So we are saying I'm going to print x if it is not less than or equals to 20. Immediately it makes less than or equals to 20, the loop will terminate. So this was the use of the while loop. So this is the use of the while loop. So we will come and say x is equals to x plus 1. Remember, I should increment so that I reach this point and it terminates. So I'll come down here, I'll clear the terminal. We said use the clear command, then come and run this. So it will come 1, 2, 3. When it reaches 20, it stops. So at the first point, let me try something smaller, like 10. Try to run this. Say 1, 2, 3, it reaches 10, it stops. Because we are saying run this value, the values of x, while x is less than or equals to 10. So immediately it makes 10, it stops. But if we said x is less than 10, so if we run this, it will end on 9 because we have excluded 10. So that is how you can use the while loop. So the match case statement, we are going to use it in the next section. I think I will explain it in the next section. So let us now go ahead to go and use the while loop. Remember, at this point I was supposed to call the function outside here, the main function, so that it helps us to return whatever has been passed inside here. So let us now go ahead and use the while loop. So I'm going to come here and say use the while loop to run around the program. So the loop runs the program over and again. So we shall say while true. Why am I saying while true? I'm going to set whatever is inside here, and I'll put a terminating condition. While it is true, I'll call this function here. So I'll now ask the user for some input, and I will say, I think the true should be, T should be uppercase, like this. So I'll now ask for the user for some input, and I will say input, and I'll ask the user, do you want to proceed with the program? So I'll ask the user, do you want to proceed with the program? So I'll give the user options to enter. So I'll assign this result to values 1 and 2. So I'll say input, I'll say user input, I'll create a variable user input is equals to that prompt. So like I said, I want to validate this. It should be strictly an integer because it will be 1 and 2. So I'll come here and display menu. Actually, I was supposed to display a menu from here, and I say print, and I say choose an option. The prompt is already here. I was supposed to ask for, I don't know, it was to confuse me myself. So this is the prompt. Actually, I'm supposed to enter the menu here. Let me print a menu here. Let me print a menu here, and I say 1 is continue, and then 2, I'll put \n so that I push 2 to the next line. 2 is exit. So the question, do you want to quit the program? I'll say choose from the list above, just like this. So the user will choose the options. So this is where we are going to introduce the match case. How do we use the match case? Let us say an example. I was requesting for this very result like this. So I'll come and create a match case statement. I'll say match, open bracket. Alright, welcome back. In this section we are going to drive the concepts that will help us to answer questions in the next section. Now here, what we are going to focus on is working with data structures. So by the end, you should be able to apply data structures in a program. So some of the data structures include a list. So the questions we are asking here, what data structure best represents the product name, the cost price, selling price, and the quantity? I think you can summarize that down in case you have a notebook you're using. Now I've come here, I've created a few data structures. So this is a list. This is I'm going to explain. This is a tuple. Then this is a dictionary. Then lastly, this is a string. So a list is an ordered changeable collection that can store items of different data types. So apart from me writing here only these are integers or numbers, I can also put here a name, just like that. So when you're working with a list, you can provide different data types. And to create a list, you use 2 square brackets at the opening and at the closing. So we can access elements of a list using their indexes or their indices. An example, if I want to print the first value 23, I'll say print, then I'll call my list, that is list max, then I open square brackets, then I call the index. So the first value is on index 0. Let us run that and we see that it will produce the first value, which is 23. Okay, so we are bringing this concept because we are now going to produce the final output. Remember, we have been entering these values raw and they remain in the terminal. So we want to store those values into a CSV file, but we are going to utilize the knowledge of data structures to store those values. So that is how you do return a value at index 0. If you want a value at index 5, in case it is there, let us try to print index 5, the value is 90. So if you count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the last value. So you can return a range of values. An example, you can return the first 3 values. So I'm going to print my list, open square brackets, put a colon, then put 3. I want to print the first 3 values, 23, 54, and 76. So precede 3 with a colon, then run this. So you'll have a shortened list having 23, 54, and 76. So if you want the last values, just turn this otherwise, just like that. So that is a list. Let us go to a tuple. To create a tuple is also another data structure. Remember, I didn't mention them. We have a list, tuple, dictionary, and a string. So to create a tuple, we also use the parentheses, pair of parentheses, and we pass values within the parentheses. So we can print also the values using their indices. I'll call the tuple max, and I'll return the value at index 1. Try to run this. The value at index 1 is 67. You can also do the slicing or the splitting. This is called slicing, where you're simply chopping a portion of the list and creating a new list. You can do the slicing just the same way. Let us look at a dictionary. Actually, I forgot out a set. Call a set. So this is how you create a set using a pair of curly brackets, then you place the values within. I think I may not focus on it. So a dictionary behaves the same way like a set. In a set, you don't actually index the values using their indices. Let us try for a dictionary. The same thing for a dictionary and a set, they act the same. So if I want to pick a value from this dictionary, a dictionary is created the same way using this pair of curly brackets, and then we call this a key, then this a value. They are separated by a colon. Okay, so it is a key value pair. It comes in a pair like this. So a key and a value. So that is how a dictionary works. So for me to get the value here, actually for me to get the value, I use the key. So an example, I will use the dict student data, and then within the pair of square brackets, I'll put in quotes name. What am I going to bring out? I'll comment this. Let me try to print. I should print the result should be this name. So the result is this name. If I want the age, I'll say student, open square brackets, then inside I'll write age. I'll be intending to bring this age. So if I run this, I'll see Emmanuel, then 30. So what happens here? Whenever you're working with a dictionary, the keys should be in square brackets. Then the values, in case they are strings, the keys should be in quotes. Then the values, in case they are strings, they should be in quotes, keys in quotes, and then the values, this is a numerical number, we leave it open. Lastly is the string. A string is any other ordinary value you deal with. So a string, you index it the same way we index a tuple, and a list. And to create a string, you open a pair of quotes, then type your string inside. So if I want the first value from this string, I'll say my string, then I'll return the value at index 0. It must be able to bring for me back E. When I print this, it must bring back the result as E. Bearing in mind that you can also do slicing like this. In case I want only the two M's, I may print something like print my string. So inside pair of brackets, I'll return values at 0.2 and I think 4. Let me try to run this. I'll have to put this as a comment. Run this, it will bring MA, so which means it has gone to, let me do 1 and 2. 1 and 2, it will bring M. Okay, 1 and 3, because the last one, I'm sure it is not inclusive. 1 and 3, it will bring MM. So you can return specific values from a string by simply slicing it like this. This is called slicing. You're just picking a portion of it or cutting out a portion of it and displaying it out. So this brings us to the end of this section. In the next section is when we are going to start applying these concepts to the real life program. Alright, let us proceed. Now we are going to lecture 8. We are going to be guided by this learning outcome. So by the end of this section, you should be able to use pandas to create a data frame from a dictionary and also utilize the knowledge we learned earlier. So we are going to be guided by these questions. What happens if the user enters text instead of numbers? So you must do some data validation to check what the user enters. Why is it important to do data validation? What errors are likely when users enter data manually? Which library would you use to do data visualization? And how would you create a dashboard to visualize the data? Remember, we said we are going to create a CSV file to help us store the data which has been entered in the console program. So let us go back to our Python project. Now at the top of this project, we are going to come and create 3 lists to store different items. Remember, when we were writing a list here, I think we wrote something like a list and then it is to storing some data. So we are going to create a list. The first list will be maize list, just like that. The next will be for beans and the next will be for millet. So we are going to use a library called pandas. We are going to say import pandas as PD. So in case you don't have pandas, come to your terminal, or you can open a command prompt in case you're using Windows. For me, I'm using Linux, that's why I'm using the terminal here. Come and say pip. Remember, pandas is a Python library. Come and say pip install pandas like this. Press enter while you're connected to internet. So Python will go ahead to install the pandas library. So mine is already installed, that's why it is saying requirements already satisfied. So in case you've just installed and it is not working out, first close Visual Studio Code, then come back to your project. Now we have created 3 lists here. We are going to come down here at the end of this function. This is where we are going to implement the whole logic of creating the CSV file. So we are going to come and create So we are going to come and create the CSV file from here. Shall create and say create CSV file. Now before we create the CSV file, I'm going to explain about how do we read data from a CSV file. Now for us to read data from a CSV file and even create a CSV file from simply a data frame, or simply we shall create it from a dictionary, is what we are going to look at here. First, I'm going to look for a CSV file. So I've gotten a CSV file. I have one here. So for me to read the content of this CSV, I can click on it and I can view it from another tab here, and it will open here and I will see this data. But what if I want to just view it? That's when I'm going to say import pandas. We shall use the pandas library to read the CSV file as PD. Now PD is simply a name you can give. You can use something else, but most people use PD, and I've also used PD here. So for me to read this CSV file, I have to come and give it a name. I'll call it data is equals to PD dot read CSV. So I'll specify the path to the CSV file. So in quotes, open parentheses, then in quotes. So I'll come and copy the path to this CSV file. Come and right click on it and then look for copy path. Come and paste the path within this pair of quotes. So I can come and print the data. This is the data. Remember, I've assigned this variable data to this CSV file. Just come and write pd.read CSV and you'll have something like that. So if we try to run this, so it will display or print the results of that CSV file. So that is how you read data from a CSV file. Now how do we create a CSV file? I'll comment this and this out. How do we send data? This is reading. Now how do we write data to a CSV file? Let me create a dictionary here, then I'll come back and we proceed. Okay, I've created my dictionary. I've named it my dict. Now like we said, the dictionary has the key, these are the keys, and the values. So it has 3 pairs of values which have been put in a list. So we have this corresponding to this age, brand corresponds to this age, Chris corresponds to this age. So I can decide to print this, but instead of printing it, I want to transform this data into a CSV file. So what will I do? I'm going to create a CSV using a data frame. I'll call my data frame df is equals to, I'll use the pandas library dot data frame. So in my data frame, I'm going to create my data frame from my dictionary. So if I try to print this CSV, when I try to print this data frame I've created, I just created a variable df, then I assigned it to the creation of a data frame from this dictionary. So if you try to run this, you'll get the values in this style where we have name and age. Alice corresponds to 22, like I said. So by so doing, we can write this data to a CSV. So we shall come down here and we say pd dot to CSV. I think pd dot to CSV hope I'm not forgetting it. I want to write this. Actually, I'm writing df dot to CSV like this. So what am I writing to CSV? I'm now going to specify the file name. So the file name, I'll put it in quotes like this. I'll put it in quotes and I say sample dot CSV. So I'll print. Actually, I don't need to print anything here. Let me just see, because I'm creating the CSV sample. I'm sure it will go in this directory. So just run this and you shall get the sample.csv, and if we open it, it will have this data like this. So if you don't want this as a column of data, well, first of all delete this. So come inside here where you created the CSV and say index equals to false. Index equals to false. So if you run this again to create the CSV, and if you open the CSV file, you realize that those indices are off. So that is how you create a CSV and how you read data from a CSV. Now we are going to apply these concepts now to create the final CSV for our project to store the data, so that we shall have the data extracted the way you saw this data was extracted. So go ahead, complete here, then meet me in the next section and we proceed. Alright, welcome back. We are back for this section where we are going to now proceed. We are going to be guided by these learning outcomes. You should be able to apply pandas and data frames knowledge to create CSVs. We have already created, but we are going to see for our project. Then run the program and find the results. Now the questions here we have are, how would you display error messages differently in a console program? Remember, here we are running in the terminal or the console. How would you display error messages? That will be one of the tasks which are on your table. Now come up here. We had created these lists earlier. Come somewhere here in the maze function, and we are going to create the CSV from somewhere here. Create enough space. So we are going to create a CSV which I'll call it data. Data is equals to, so I'll create a dictionary which will help us to store the variables. Then later we shall get this dictionary, append it to what we call the list we created earlier. So come and say data. Remember we said, actually let us call it sales data to be descriptive enough. So sales data, then open and close pair of curly brackets, then press enter. I'm going to define my variables here. So the variables, remember we said whenever you're creating a dictionary, you give the first are the keys which are in quotes, then these are the values which will be displayed. So the first variable here is the cost price. So these ones work like the headers. So the cost price will come from the variable cost price. Put a comma, press enter. We shall also create for the selling price. This is like a heading. You can just leave space like that. Put a colon, then specify the selling price. Put a comma. You can write it in a single line, or you can write it the way I'm writing it. We shall go for the total selling price, just like this. Then we shall get the result from the total. Actually, we're supposed to start with the total cost price. Total cost price, shall get the result from the total cost price. Put a comma. I think I'll pause, I'll finish the rest, then I come back and we proceed. This is, we called it percent profit. So this one will be the header, and this will be like the values. This one will be bringing in the values. So we are going to come down here and we say we are now going to get this data, and we append it to this list. So we shall use the append method. We shall say maize list dot append. What are we going to append? We are going to append the sales data. So let us try to print the maize list. Print maize list at the end. When we terminate the program, we want to try to print the maize list. So come and run this program. So we want to start with maize. Try to run with some sample values, some quantity. So we shall proceed. Actually, let us quit. Let us quit with 2. So we shall realize that the values have been printed here. I think you can see them. So whereby we have the cost price 300, something like that. So what are we going to do? Let us send these values to a CSV. We shall come and instead of this print, we shall not print. Let us now send these values to a CSV. So we are going to, after appending these values to the sales data, I think what we now have to do is, shall say, remember we had imported pandas earlier. We had said importing pandas up here. So we shall say pd dot to CSV. I think I may not get it here unless if won't I assign this to a variable, so that after assigning it to a variable like we did here, remember this was my dictionary, and then I had to convert the dictionary. Let me call this let me just call this maize like this. Hope it works. Maize. So I'll get pd dot data frame. I want to turn maize to a data frame. I'm just trying, then I'll come back and modify it. So I'll turn it to a data frame, and then I'll get the maize, and then I'll write a CSV. Wait, I'm supposed to do something else here. I'm supposed to do something which is more smarter. Let me use df instead of maize. Df is equals to that. So I'll come and say df dot data frame. I want to turn that data into a data frame. What am I doing? pd dot data frame. So I'm turning df into a data frame. Then I'll come and write it to a CSV. Shall say df dot to CSV. I hope I'm also not pasting it. Let me check from here again. I say df dot to CSV. I think I've not wronged anything here, or I've missed something here. Let me first pause, first check this, and then okay, what I'm supposed to do here, this is fine. So I'm supposed to, this is the maize list, so I'm supposed to create a data frame from this maize list. So I'll say df dot data, df is equals to pd dot data frame. So I'm creating a data frame for the maize list. So I'm turning the maize list into a data frame. So what will I do? Remember, I appended the values here. So what will I do now? I'll get the data frame which I've named df dot to CSV. I turn it into a CSV. Then I'll give it a name as maize data dot CSV. Then I'll also make sure the index is false. I don't want the index on it. just like this. So let us look at how this will print. It was almost confusing me here. Let me run this. So we shall run this and we select maize, which is option 1. I'll enter some prices, some quantities. So immediately I select that, it creates the CSV. So I will again be asked whether I should continue or I exit. So I'll select continue. I'll select maize again, enter some prices, enter some quantities, and I'll be there at that point. So please select an item from the list, select maize again, enter some prices like this, some quantities. The question is, do you want to proceed? I don't want to proceed, let me quit. So if you come and open this CSV, you'll be able to see that all the 3 records we have entered, they have been captured here. So we shall do the same for the next ones, that is the other products. So shall just copy this code, shall just modify it, shall copy this code actually just from there, shall come to the next item, make sure you give enough space such that it is readable. And remember, Python is sensitive to indents, so which means where the function starts, always keep a tab, then place the next lines of code. So this one will be, this one I called it beans list. I think I'd created them up here already. Beans list, millet list, something like that. So I'm going to append the data. This is okay, it still remains the same, the data is the same. So I will append I'll create a data frame from the beans list, and I will create the CSV named beans CSV. So we shall go and do the same for this other section. Shall paste it here, this is the same. I'll change this to millet CSV, sorry, millet list. Then I append the data from the cells. So I'll go ahead, this one will be millet like this, and this will be millet as well. So when you're making these edits, you be careful because you can easily mess up. So the file name will be millet.csv. So let us go and run the program again. So let me first clear the terminal, just like this, using the clear command. I'll run this again. It will ask, let me go for beans this time round. I'll enter some prices, like this, quantity sold. So you realize the beans data.csv has been created. So we can proceed, continue. Let me select millet, option 3, cost price, put something like that, quantity sold. So I'll pause here. The question we had previously was, what if a user enters text instead of numbers? What will happen? So after that, we also have the millet data.csv. So you can do the same for beans again, enter some data just for practice. So I'll exit. So if you come to the beans, you realize we have 2 records because we entered 2 records. When you come to millet, you realize we have 1 record because we entered 1 record. So that is how you would work with this. However, we had earlier on stated a criticism and said, what if the user stubbornly enters values? What will happen? That's what we are going to do. Values, actually instead of values, the user enters text. So a user enters something like this. So you will see all this massive error and the program crashes. So this is one of the questions you have to solve. So this brings us to the end of this section. I shall pause from here and we resume in the next section. Alright, welcome back. Now, thank you for making it up to this point where we have created a full program just like this from scratch, and I would like to promise you that in case you do continued practice, you'll be able to master a few concepts and automate more robust programs. However, there remains questions. One of the questions are, what if the user decides to enter text instead of numbers? How do you think the program will behave? So we saw the program had to crash. So how will you handle that case? Then we also saw a case of how would you visualize this data? That's a very big question. How will you visualize this data? A crew, you can use matplotlib library to visualize the data, because remember, after collecting this data, you have to build insight into this data. Okay, you have to build insight maybe by constructing graphs or charts and many other things. So that is the task I'm leaving on your table. How do you visualize? You can do research on how to do data visualization, then you can see where you can end. This brings us to the end of the Python section. We are going to open the next section of use of C++ to do the same task. How do we use the match case? Let us say an example. I was requesting for this very results like this. So I'll come and create a match case statement. I'll say match, open bracket, put the user input. I want to check matching conditions over that user input. So I'll say match case user input. So I'll come and create the first case. So the first case is when the user selects case 1, the user has selected option 1. So we shall print a statement and say you are continuing. So in case the user selects case 2, in case the user selects case 2, we shall print and say you have selected to quit. So there is a default case which we write case space underscore full colon. Then we shall print. This is now like a default case when the user doesn't choose 1 or 2. You entered an invalid option. So whenever the user does something, we must show up a case. So let us go and run this for the user to be asked for some input. Do you want to proceed? So I'll select 1. It will say you are continuing. If I run again, do you want to proceed? If I select 2, it will say you have selected to quit. If I run this program again, and this time around I type something else instead of 1 or 2, it will say there is an error because the input should be strictly integers. So I think that one is also captured well. We shall come and copy this match case because even the previous code we copied from here, and we paste it here. You can add comments so that it is easily readable. So we shall have match case. Make sure this is indented inside the match. So in case somebody chooses option 1, we are going to call this function such that somebody is continuing, just proceeds back to the program. So in case somebody chooses option 2, should quit the program. So to quit the program, we shall come up here and import the sys library. Come on top of the program and import sys. So sys helps us to work with the command line arguments. So come and say sys dot exit, open and close parentheses, just like that. So this loop will always, while true, while it is true that we have not terminated anything inside the loop, it will keep running this until, let us go and run this. So my terminal is congested. I'll first terminate it, clear it, and I run this again. So I'm going to choose an option from the list here. So the first option will be maize, then enter the cost price, enter the selling price, quantity sold. So it will go and proceed and come down and ask your percentage is that you made a good profit. So there's something here, continue, exit. Do you want to continue or exit? I think we should ask a question above here. The question should come after this question of do you want to continue or exit should come after, not continue or exit. And then so this question should I don't know where should we put it. I think anyway, I hope you're getting it. We have the continue and the exit. A user should enter here the choice. So I think we're supposed to ask from above here, then we accept the input. So I'm going to just alternate this. I'm going to come and remove this prompt just like this. I'll cut it out and I'll paste it somewhere here first. Let me just paste it temporarily here. Let me remove this. Let me remove only this. I'll cut it out, paste it here, such that the user will now have to give me a choice from there. Let me cut this out again and I'll paste it within these quotes. Hopefully it will make sense. Let me terminate this, Ctrl C to terminate. Use the clear command to clear the terminal. So I'll select one, give some products, give some prices, some quantity. So the question will be, do you want to proceed? I should check something here with the program. Choose from the list above. It is now a list below. So I'll come back to somewhere here, should make changes here. So do you want to proceed with the program? Choose from the list below. It is now, the list is now below. So if you come here, I want the input to be on the next line. I don't want it to be on this line. So come and place the space n, backspace, backslash n. So I'll come and again terminate this, clear the terminal, then run this again. So do you want to proceed? I'll choose maize 1. I'll enter some prices, like this, quantity. So the question will be, do you want to proceed with the program? Choose from the list below. So I'll choose 1. If I choose 1, it goes back and runs this very function again. This very function, the main function, displaying the menu for me to choose from. Then if I choose, let's say beans, it will ask for the cost price, it will ask for the selling price, the quantity sold, and it will again display the results for beans and will again loop back. So that is how you can interact with the program. So if you wanted to quit, you'd just select exit and you quit the program. So this brings us to the end of this section. From here we are coming back to proceed. Okay, to download Python on Windows, head down to this link, copy this link, or just type it the way it is in the browser. Just come and type it here, or I'll just paste it. So head down to downloads, then come here and find the latest, that is Python 3.142, actually 3.14.2, then download this. So you can even download the release notes and look through. So after downloading, run the executable file and you'll get Python installed. So after that, that is now the step where we are going to go. Download Visual Studio Code. Head down to this link also. Go to your browser and find this link. Then download for Windows. Remember, we are looking at how to download for Windows. Download for Windows and then install it also. Run the installer. After running the installer, that is Visual Studio Code, after downloading, run the installer. So after running the installer, we shall now come and install these packages. So come and look for Visual Studio Code after installing it. Then come here to the extensions manager or extensions icon here. Then search for Python extension. Just search for Python extension. So when it comes up, that is Python extension, and this one here, they are all, this is by Microsoft actually. Download and install this one here by Microsoft. And then go ahead to search for Pylons. Search for Pylons. When it shows up, I think it must be, yes, it is already installed. It is also by Microsoft. And then search for Code Runner. Search for Code Runner. Choose this option, .run. This option, I think, I don't know whether it has gone off. Search for this option, Code Runner, then also install it. So it will help you to get Python ready for use. However, we need to add Python to our environment variable. That is in step 2. So what do? Go to your C drive. I'll go to C drive. I'll go to users, and then I'll open my account, and then come to view and check hidden files so that we can see hidden files. If it is unchecked, we shall not see app data. Open app data, come to local, then open programs, come and open Python, come and open Python 312. In the address bar here, right click and copy address, just like this. So come to your Windows button and search for Edit System Environment Variables. I'll minimize this. Then come to Advanced, come to Edit Variables. So come to Pass still, click on Edit. So come to New, then paste the pass we copied and click OK. Now I already have that pass, so which means I'll remove it because I have it here, Python. I'll remove it, select it and delete. Click OK, and click OK and get out. So by so doing, you'll have Python installed in Visual Studio Code. So to create a project here, come to File, then New, then select Python file. But first we need to select the interpreter. Come to Manage or the Settings button here. Come to Command Palette. Search for Python and search for select interpreter. So I'll select the one which is recommended. Actually, this is recommended with I don't know, let me select the one which I've been using. I think it is 3.12.3. So select. Actually, don't select any of these options. These ones are using, I think, after we installed C++. So select this option, appdata/local/program/python/python312. Select this option as your interpreter. So come to File, the new file, select Python file, then save this. I'll save this in this folder. I'll save it as first. So I'll come and write a sample script like this, and I say hello world, just like this. Just like this. So after writing this line, come to the play button, then run Python file. You should be able to see the output in the terminal here, just exactly what we had put in quotes. So this is how you can install and run Python in Visual Studio Code. Alright, now after developing the whole project, the process is not done. There's a lot of learning through. Now there are some of the recommendations I've outlined here. Now these recommendations, while in the field, you'll get more recommendations. I'm still a manual doodle and I'm instructor in this area still. So some of the recommendations after building the project, remember we have built the graphical user interface, we have built a website which can compute calculations, we have built something in Excel. So there's something we should look out for. Input validation and sanitization. This is one of the further recommendations. So make sure all user inputs are validated and sanitized to prevent injection or invalid data processing. So for example, validate numerical inputs to ensure they are within expected ranges. Then file limit access. Avoid writing CSV files like the way we did. So to unrestricted locations, use a dedicated directory with restricted permissions. So an example, store CSV files to secure subdirectories. So also error handling. Ensure all exemptions are properly caught. So other recommendations include also avoid hard coding sensitive data. So if your application requires sensitive data such as API keys, database credentials, avoid hard coding them. Then restrict external libraries. Ensure you only use trusted libraries also. Ensure file permissions are secure. Set appropriate file permissions for CSV files such that there is no unauthorized access. Then also use virtual environments. So run your Python in a Python virtual environment to isolate dependencies and reduce risk of dependency-related vulnerabilities. So update dependencies. There are some dependencies which have been, duplicated, something like that, whereby the developers are no longer maintaining them. So always update and download new ones. So secure the graphical user interface by limiting the functionality of graphical user interface to only what is necessary. An example, disable drag and drop features or clipboard access if not needed. So in case there is no need for copying and pasting, so you can disable the clipboard. So logging and monitoring. Implement logging to monitor user actions and detect suspicious behavior. So use Python's logging module to log events. So if you're in a website, also check out what can best support you in that. So prevent code injection, that is point 11. Avoid using the evil function. That one is used mostly if you're doing calculations. So in graphical user interface applications. So avoid using them as they can execute arbitrary code and pose a security risk. The beautiful thing is there are other alternatives to them. Secure dependencies. Use tools like pip audit to check for known vulnerabilities in your dependencies. So by implementing these measures, you can significantly improve the security of your application and reduce the risk of malicious activities. So in case you're excited to learn with me again, go ahead, finish up here and let us meet again.